Hey, this is Retro Nerd Girl, and this is a segment from my interview with Douglas A. Burton, the author of The Heroine's Labyrinth. I wanted to talk a little bit about what you know about the hero's journey, because I think all of us are pretty well versed on the hero's journey because of things that we've heard about Star Wars and a couple of those big stories from antiquity, like Jason and the Argonauts, all those fantastic stories that use the hero's journey. What do you know about the hero's journey, and how were you using it to help your stories?
So from what I understand, the hero's journey is an unconscious thing that humans have when they're telling their stories. They're unaware that they're, especially whoever wrote, the Epic of Gilgamesh or Jason and the Argonauts, they weren't using this because it had not been defined. So they had done this unconsciously or subconsciously. That's what's so fascinating about it. To me, it's like the closest thing to psychic that we really have, where we're communicating somehow, some way, different cross cultures, this culture, this time period, modern day, doesn't matter. This pattern was appearing. And it was Joseph Campbell who discovered it. And he wrote his book in 1949, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, in which he lays out archetypal patterns that he found in all sorts of these comparative mythology, like Jason and the Argonauts, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Book of Moses. Lord of the Rings has the hero's journey. And so George Lucas, as a student, learned about the hero's journey in academia, in college. And he's like, I think that would go great with Star Wars. So he decided he was going to use this format for his story. Well, the movie blew everybody away and redefined Hollywood and what stories could be and what it could do to the public and the effect it could have on pop culture. And, like you, a huge fan of Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
I think we were talking the other day, both our top three movies is Empire Strikes Back. So these movies tend to stay with us. And part of the reason they stay with us is because they have something archetypal there, which is something primal, something psychological, something relatable that we can look at. And when we walk away from the film, we just can't shake it. It's in there.
Yeah.
Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker cross sabers for the first. We'll never forget what that was like when we saw that.
Yeah.
When Luke is going down the trench run, you don't forget it. When someone asked George, how did you do Star Wars? And he mentioned the hero's journey, everybody went out to figure out what the hero's journey was. And I don't know if you've read A Hero with a Thousand Faces. It's very esoteric and very hard to read. And I was almost like, how do you even interpret the hero's journey from this book? So you had Campbell academically outlay it. You had Lucas apply it and use it. And then you had a third person named Christopher Vogler, who took the fire from the gods and gave it to us and explained the hero's journey. And most of us, when we talk about the hero's journey, are really using the Vogler version of the hero's journey, which is a little bit more universalized, a little bit more accessible. Like Campbell has steps like woman as temptress. So obviously women writers were like, well, does it have to be there? So what he did, Vogler was like, no, it doesn't. What we can do is universalize this. And instead of a departure from the native culture and a return, Act 1 for Campbell's model is departure. That's what he called it. And Act 3 is called return. Like Bilbo says, there and back again. I mean, that's a hero's journey. Vogler tried to redefine it as known and unknown. The character will go from a known place to an unknown place. But the rest of the steps are essentially the same. And I think the reason it's so prevalent is because a hunter or a warrior will follow this model. You think about a soldier's journey. The soldier leaves home, has his identity broken down. He learns and masters skills to help him, and then will face a militant outsider at some point. And then hopefully return. Hopefully the soldier comes home. That's why I think it repeats in all time periods and in all cultures, because the warrior role, the hunter's role also repeats. So this natural pattern forms. So the hero's journey features certain things, right? You have the departure. You have the magic talisman, where the hero gets some or supernatural aid, like Luke's lightsaber.
Lightsaber, yeah.
Was your father's lightsaber. Or Bilbo gets the elven cloak. You get some sort of supernatural aid. And then there's a wise mentor like Obi-Wan Kenobi or Gandalf the Grey. And then there's the road of trials. And the hero will often go through this road of trials, often physical combat or physical obstructions in a way. And also there's a threshold guardian. And the threshold guardian is like a sentry that blocks the hero's effort to leave the native culture, to go from the known to the unknown. And the hero has to overcome this threshold guardian. In Star Wars, famously, it's Walrus Man and that pig-nosed guy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so they're blocking his exit out, and Luke has to overcome the confrontation. And it's actually Ben Kenobi who helps Luke overcome it. But the hero has to go past this threshold in order to do the departure. There's often late in the story a belly of the beast, which is a symbolic death of the hero.
Oh.
And this is very like Luke Skywalker hanging from the vein on the bottom of Cloud City.
Okay.
The hero is at a very, very low point. It's a disgrace. It's a symbolic death. Whatever you thought about yourself, whatever positives you had, look at you now. You're a mess. You're not anything. And it's a terrible blow to a hero. It's the loss of confidence. Top Gun features this loss of confidence. But the hero comes back. The hero re-engages, rediscovers his confidence, and then he will face what is called the supreme ordeal, in which almost always it features single combat between the hero and the villain. And the villain is what I call a distant dragon archetype. And this dragon must be slain. And the hero slays the dragon. In Star Wars A New Hope, it's the Death Star. Luke slays the dragon. It's the Death Star. And like all dragons, all these dragon archetypes have the ability to spew fire from their mouth to annihilate culture. Whether it's the dragon smog flying over Lake Town and devastating it with streams of fire, or the green laser of the Death Star, or the radioactive breath of Godzilla, or the armies of Mordor, or the armies of Thanos. There are culture annihilating forces, and the hero faces this and hopefully defeats it. And then after this, hopefully the hero returns home. And it's quite an ordeal. And the hero often struggles to reintegrate into society because his experiences have separated him in some way from the ordinary life. Often the culture recognizes the hero by praising them or rewarding them with a medal, often a bride. That is typical as well. I also think of Perseus in Clash of the Titans.
Yes.
He comes in on Pegasus, and there's the Kraken. It's a culture annihilator. It wiped out entire cities in the beginning of the movie, and then chained to the mountain is Andromeda, and he saves her, which makes him now worthy of a bride. It's not just that he wins the bride. The bride is not a prize. That is one interpretation that I mostly reject. He has become worthy of a bride. The bride must still choose him. He's proven himself. And he gets the medal, like the end of Star Wars, that great throne room scene. So that's the hero's journey. And it's a wonderful arc. It resonates through the ages, and some of the greatest stories ever told have had this model.
Yes. I mean, when I first heard about the hero's journey and I, just seeing how it was playing out in so many movies, it was just such a wonderful revelation, because you're like, oh, wow. So that's why all of these movies work and all of these stories really, really resonate with me, because it's timeless. It's this, this campfire stories that really touch you in the heart, and they come from this simple pattern that we've just naturally repeated over and over, and it's very satisfying. It's very satisfying. Right now, YouTube is going to suggest a video for you to watch. I urge you to do so, because that will really help out the channel a lot, and I will be able to continue to make content a lot like this. Without further ado, I bid you adieu, and I'll see you in the next one.